The desperate delegation arrived at Earth 6 months after the Battle of Kepler, traveling in ships flying flags of truce and surrender. Ambassador Zenth of the Altarian Republic led the group, his crystalline body showing stress fractures that had not been there during their last meeting. Behind him came representatives from a dozen species, each looking more desperate than the last. The proud hegemony delegate kept his golden scales polished, but his hands shook. The Silicon Confederacy representative's mechanical voice box crackled with static from poor maintenance. They were the survivors of a galaxy in collapse. Earth looked different than they remembered. The blue world that had once welcomed visitors from across the stars was now surrounded by orbital defense platforms that hummed with barely contained energy. Ships that approached without proper authorization found themselves escorted by vessels that seemed to appear from nowhere. The delegation's transport was met at the edge of the Sol system by Admiral Chen Wei himself, aboard the UES Defiance. The same ship that had once patrolled trade routes to ensure peaceful commerce now bristled with weapons that could destroy small moons. Delegation from the Galactic Council. Chen's voice came over their communication system. You are granted safe passage to Earth. Any deviation from your assigned course will be considered hostile action. Ambassador Zenth activated his response channel. Admiral Chen, this is Zenth. We've known each other for 20 years. Surely we can speak as old friends. There was a long pause before Chen replied. Ambassador, I no longer have friends outside human space. I have allies, enemies, and neutrals. Your current status depends entirely on what you say in the next few hours. The delegation was escorted through Sol system in silence. They passed Mars, where orbital shipyards worked around the clock-building vessels of war. They flew by the asteroid belt, where mining operations had been converted to weapons manufacturing. They saw Jupiter's moons bristling with defensive installations that dwarfed anything in Council records. Earth itself was almost unrecognizable. The peaceful blue world was now protected by energy shields that bent light around them, like atmospheric mirages. Cities that had once sprawled across continents were now organized into defensive zones with clear fields of fire between them. They landed at Geneva, where the old United Nations building had been restored to its former glory. But unlike the warm diplomatic center it had once been, the building now felt like a fortress. Security was tight, weapons were visible, and every human they met looked at them with barely concealed hostility. Chancellor Elizabeth Harper met them in the same chamber where humanity had first joined the galactic community 3 centuries before. But the room had changed. Where once there had been flags and symbols representing friendship with dozens of species, now there were memorial walls listing the names of humans who had died serving galactic peace. At the center of the room sat a single chair, empty, representing the Karani species that no longer existed. Honored delegates, Harper began, her voice formal and cold. You have requested this meeting to discuss humanity's return to the Galactic Council. Before we begin, I want you to understand exactly what your council has accomplished in our absence. Holographic displays activated around the room, showing the state of galactic civilization. The Hegemony Confederacy War had consumed 16 star systems. Pirate fleets controlled most outer rim trade routes. Refugee camps housed millions of displaced beings with no hope of return to their homes. The Vorthak Empire, Harper continued, has completed their extermination of the Karani people. 8 billion sentient beings are dead because your council chose politics over protection. Zenth stood, his crystalline form ringing softly. Chancellor Harper, Elizabeth, I know humanity is angry. We all are, but without human guidance, the galaxy is tearing itself apart. Billions more will die if this chaos continues. Harper's expression did not change. Ambassador Zenth, humanity guided the galaxy for 300 years. We prevented wars, mediated disputes, and protected the innocent. In return, when we asked you to protect 8 billion peaceful beings, you chose to protect your trade agreements instead. The situation was complex, protested the hegemony representative. Economic stability affects everyone. You had to consider profit margins, Harper interrupted. While people died, you calculated shipping costs. She walked to the empty chair representing the Karani. This chair will remain empty forever, because your council decided that convenience was more important than justice. Every time you meet, you will look at this chair and remember what your choices cost. The delegation shifted uncomfortably. The Silicon Confederacy representative spoke through his crackling voice box. Chancellor, the past cannot be changed, but the future still can be. We offer humanity full leadership of the Council, complete authority over galactic policy. You could reshape civilization according to human values. Harper almost smiled. You offer us leadership over a burning galaxy. You want us to clean up the mess you made after rejecting our attempts to prevent it? Zenth leaned forward desperately. Elizabeth, humanity has always been the galaxy's moral center. Without you, we've lost our way. You need someone to solve your problems, Harper finished. You need someone to make the hard choices you're afraid to make. You need someone to take responsibility while you reap the benefits. She activated another holographic display, this one showing human space. Unlike the chaos consuming the rest of the galaxy, human territory was an island of stability. Trade flowed smoothly between human worlds. Conflicts were resolved quickly through established legal systems. Peace was maintained through strength rather than negotiation. Ambassador Zenth, Harper said, let me tell you what humanity learned during our time away from galactic politics. We learned that peace without justice is meaningless. We learned that diplomacy without strength is worthless. Most importantly, we learned that some species will only respect power. The Zentorian delegate spoke for the first time. Chancellor, surely you don't intend to abandon the galaxy permanently? Humanity has always stood for cooperation and unity. Humanity stands for justice, Harper corrected. For 3 centuries, we tried to build that justice through cooperation. The galaxy rejected that approach. Now we will try a different method. She pressed a control and the room's displays showed human military strength. Fleets that had grown from nothing to overwhelming force in just months. Defense networks that could protect entire sectors of space. Weapons that could eliminate threats before they fully materialized. The Galactic Council is hereby dissolved, Harper announced. Effective immediately, humanity recognizes no authority over human space except human authority. The delegation erupted in protests and desperate pleas, but Harper raised her hand for silence. However, she continued, humanity is willing to establish a new organization. We will call it the Galactic Protection Authority. Membership will be voluntary, but it will operate under human command with human values. Zenth looked confused. What would be the difference? Harper's smile was cold and final. The difference, Ambassador, is that the old council required consensus to act. The new authority will require consensus to prevent action. When we determine that justice demands intervention, we will intervene. Member species may object, but they cannot stop us. And if we refuse to join? Asked the hegemony representative. Then you continue dealing with your problems alone, Harper replied. But understand this. The authority will protect its members from all threats, including threats from non-member species. If you attack our allies, you attack us. If you threaten peace, we will end that threat permanently. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity was offering protection, but only on their terms. Species could join and accept human authority, or remain independent and face whatever consequences came their way. This is ultimatum, the Silicon Confederacy delegate said flatly. Yes, Harper agreed. It is. For 300 years, humanity accepted your ultimatums. We compromised our principles to maintain unity. We watched the innocent suffer to preserve consensus. No more. She walked to the window overlooking Lake Geneva. The water was calm and peaceful, reflecting the lights of a city that had learned to balance serenity with strength. You have 72 hours to decide, Harper announced without turning around. Join the Protection Authority under human leadership, or continue navigating the galaxy's chaos alone. Choose wisely, because this offer will not be repeated. Ambassador Zenth stood, his crystalline body resonating with stress. Elizabeth, what happened to the humans who believed in mercy and forgiveness? Harper finally turned back to face them, and for a moment her expression softened with something that might have been sadness. They died with the Qurani, she said quietly. What you see now is what you created when you chose politics over principle. We are still human, but we are no longer naive. The delegation filed out in silence, carrying humanity's ultimatum back to their broken governments. Some would accept the new terms. Others would try to maintain independence until their next crisis overwhelmed them. But all of them understood that the galaxy had fundamentally changed. The gentle species that had once begged for permission to help was now demanding obedience to receive protection. The emergency signal traveled through the dark space between stars. It carried the voice of Ambassador Cathara, her crystalline body shaking as she spoke into the communication device. Behind her, the sounds of destruction echoed through the halls of the Zilani Capitol building. The windows showed the red glow of fires burning across their beautiful city. This is Ambassador Cathara of the Zilani Republic, broadcasting on all emergency frequencies. Our world is under attack by the Vorthak swarm. We request immediate assistance from any member of the Galactic Council. Our defenses have failed. Our military is destroyed. We have perhaps 10 days before our entire civilization is extinct. The message repeated every hour for 3 days before the first responses came. The Alteran Federation offered to send evacuation ships that could carry maybe 1 million Zilani to safety. The Silicon Collective promised advanced shield technology that might protect their remaining cities for a few more weeks. The Aquatic Alliance sent their sympathy and offered temporary homes on their water worlds for any survivors. Each offer was kind, but none offered what the Zilani truly needed. They needed someone who could fight the Vorthak and win. They needed warriors who could face the most feared predators in the galaxy and drive them back. But no species in the Council had ever successfully fought the Vorthak swarm. Every world that tried was now a dead rock floating in space. The Vorthak were living nightmares. They had evolved on a world where everything tried to kill everything else. Their bodies were covered in natural armor harder than most metals. Their blood was acid that could eat through starship hulls. They felt no fear, showed no mercy, and never retreated. When they found a world with life, they consumed every living thing on it and then used the planet's resources to build more ships and breed more warriors. For 500 years, the Vorthak had been spreading across the galaxy like a disease. Dozens of civilizations had fallen to them. The lucky ones died quickly in the first attack. The unlucky ones were kept alive to be slowly consumed over months or years. The Galactic Council had learned to simply evacuate any world the Vorthak targeted. Fighting them was considered suicide. The Zilani knew this history. They had helped evacuate other species when the Vorthak came for them. But now it was their turn, and they discovered that knowing you were doomed did not make it easier to accept. So they kept broadcasting their plea, hoping against hope that someone, somewhere, might have the power to help them fight. On the fourth day, their message reached the edge of a small star system with a single yellow star. The beings living there had only recently joined the Galactic Council. Most species considered them primitive newcomers who had barely learned to travel between stars. They lived on a dangerous world full of predators, natural disasters, and deadly weather. The council members thought of them as tough, but not particularly advanced. These beings called themselves humans. The human listening post that received the Zilani message was a small station orbiting their home planet Earth. Lieutenant Maria Santos was on duty when the signal came through. She listened to the entire message 3 times before she really understood what she was hearing. Another species was being wiped out by the Vorthak, and they were begging for help. Maria immediately sent the message to Earth Command. Within an hour, it was on the desk of Admiral Sarah Chen, the commander of Earth's military forces. Admiral Chen was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes. She had spent 40 years fighting wars on Earth and in space. She had seen humanity at its worst and at its best. She knew what her species was capable of when they were truly angry. Admiral Chen called an emergency meeting of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The 5 most senior military officers on Earth gathered. In a secure room deep underground, they listened to the Zilani message in silence. When it ended, the room stayed quiet for a long moment. "How long do we have?" asked General Martinez, the head of the Marine Corps. "The message is 4 days old," Admiral Chen replied. "If their estimate was correct, the Zilani have maybe 6 days left." "Can we get there in time?" asked Admiral Kumar, who commanded the space fleet. "If we leave immediately and push our fastest ships to their limits, yes." Barely. General Washington, the oldest person in the room, leaned forward. "The question is whether we should. The Vorthak have never been defeated. Every species that tried to fight them is extinct. Are we ready to risk human lives for aliens we have never met?" The room was quiet again. These were people who had spent their lives making hard choices. They knew that sending human ships against the Vorthak might mean sending them to die, but they also knew what it meant to watch helpless while innocent people were slaughtered. Admiral Chen stood up. "The Zilani are members of the Galactic Council, same as us. They helped evacuate the Corlan when the Vorthak hit their world last year. They sent medical supplies to the Vrex colonies when the plague hit. They are good people, and they are dying. She walked to the window that looked out over the Pacific Ocean. But more than that, the Vorthak are eventually going to come for us. Maybe not this year or next year, but someday. Every world they take makes them stronger. Every species they wipe out means fewer allies for us when our turn comes. General Martinez nodded slowly. Better to fight them there than here. Exactly, Admiral Chen said. And there is something else. The Galactic Council thinks of us as primitive newcomers. They think our world made us tough, but they do not really understand what that means. Maybe it is time to show them. She turned back to face the group. The Vorthak think they are the ultimate predators. They have never met anything that could match their violence. But they have never met humans. They have never met a species that turned warfare into an art form. They have never met creatures that spent 100,000 years fighting their way to the top of a food chain that was actively trying to kill them. Admiral Kumar smiled grimly. So we are not sending a rescue mission? No, Admiral Chen said. We are sending an extermination fleet. The Vorthak want to be apex predators? Fine. Let us show them what real predators look like. The meeting ended with orders being sent across the solar system. Every available warship was to report to the staging area near Mars. Every marine unit was to prepare for immediate deployment. Every weapons factory was to begin producing ammunition around the clock. The humans did not send a response to the Zelani message. There was no point in making promises they might not be able to keep. Instead, they prepared for war with the methodical efficiency that had carried them through countless conflicts on their deadly homeworld. The galaxy was about to learn why Earth was classified as a death world. More importantly, they were about to learn what happened when you threatened the friends of Deathworlders. The Vorthak had made a terrible mistake. They had gotten the attention of humanity, and humanity, when truly angry, did not send help. They sent wrath. The staging area near Mars had never seen so many ships in one place. Warships that had been patrolling the outer system came racing back toward the inner planets. Vessels that had been in maintenance were hastily repaired and pressed into service. Ships that had been retired were pulled from storage and given new crews. Captain Marcus Rivera stood on the bridge of the battlecruiser Retribution and watched the fleet assemble. He had served in the Border Wars, the Asteroid Rebellion, and the Titan Campaign. He had seen humanity fight desperate battles against impossible odds, but he had never seen anything like this. The ships gathering around Mars were not the clean, elegant vessels that other species built. Human warships were ugly, practical things designed for one purpose: killing enemies as efficiently as possible. They bristled with weapons. Their hulls were covered in armor that could stop almost anything. Their engines were overpowered to let them move faster than their enemies expected. Most importantly, they were crewed by humans who had grown up on a world that tried to kill them every day. Earth had taught humanity that the universe was a dangerous place where only the strong survived. It had taught them to be paranoid, aggressive, and absolutely ruthless when threatened. Rivera watched as the heavy cruiser Vengeance took its place in the formation. Its captain was Elena Vasquez, a woman who had earned her reputation fighting pirates in the asteroid belt. She had never lost a battle, and she had never left an enemy ship intact. The stories about what she did to pirates who targeted civilian ships were enough to make hardened Marines uncomfortable. Next came the destroyer squadron led by the Fury. Its captain was James Park, a quiet man who spoke softly and killed efficiently. He had spent 10 years hunting down terrorist cells that tried to use stolen military equipment against civilian targets. He did not believe in taking prisoners when civilians had been harmed. The assault carriers arrived last, their holds full of Marines who had volunteered for what everyone knew was likely a suicide mission. These were not regular soldiers. These were the veterans of humanity's worst conflicts, men and women who had seen things that would have broken most species. They had volunteered because someone needed to protect innocent people from monsters. Admiral Chen moved between the ships, meeting with the captains and reviewing the battle plans. The intelligence they had on the Vorthak was limited but disturbing. The aliens were not just violent. They were intelligent in their violence. They used biological weapons that could adapt to defenses. They had ships that could regenerate damage by consuming matter from space. They fought with a coordination that suggested some kind of hive mind. They have never faced anything like us, Admiral Chen told the assembled captains during their final briefing. Every species they have fought has tried to minimize casualties, to find diplomatic solutions, to fight clean wars with rules and honor. We are not going to do any of those things. She activated a holographic display showing the Vorthak bioships. The images were horrifying. The ships looked like giant insects crossed with cancerous growths. They pulsed with unnatural life, their surfaces covered in what looked like mouths full of sharp teeth. These things are designed to intimidate their enemies. Admiral Chen continued. They want their victims to be afraid, to make mistakes, to break and run. That might work on species that evolved in peaceful environments. It will not work on us. Captain Rivera raised his hand. What are our rules of engagement, Admiral? Simple, Admiral Chen replied. Kill them all. The Vorthak do not take prisoners, they do not negotiate, and they do not retreat. They consume entire civilizations. We are going to return the favor. The room was quiet. These were professional soldiers who understood the reality of war, but the Admiral was talking about something beyond normal military operations. She was talking about genocide. I know what I am asking, Admiral Chen said. I know this goes against everything we usually believe about warfare, but the Vorthak are not like other enemies. They are a disease that spreads from world to world, consuming everything in their path. You cannot negotiate with cancer. You can only cut it out. Captain Vasquez spoke up. What about survivors? What if some of them try to surrender? The Vorthak do not understand surrender, Admiral Chen replied. They have never retreated from any battle. They fight until they are all dead, or until their enemies are all dead. We are going to accommodate them. The final preparations took 18 hours. Ships were loaded with extra ammunition, spare parts, and medical supplies. The Marines checked their equipment one last time and said goodbye to their families through video calls. The fleet engineers made sure every weapon system was working perfectly. Most importantly, the humans prepared themselves mentally for what they were about to do. They were not just going to fight the Vorthak. They were going to destroy them completely. Every ship, every warrior, every trace of their presence in the Zilani system would be eliminated. This was not unusual for humanity. On Earth, they had driven dozens of species to extinction when those species threatened human survival. They had fought wars where the only acceptable outcome was the complete destruction of their enemies. They understood that sometimes, the only way to protect innocent life was to become more dangerous than the threats that menaced it. The fleet departed from Mars with no fanfare. There were no speeches, no ceremonies, no media coverage. The ships simply engaged their faster-than-light drives and disappeared into the void. They left behind a solar system that was quietly preparing for the possibility that they might never return. The journey to the Zilani system would take 6 days at maximum speed. During that time, the crews prepared for battle. Marines practiced boarding actions. Gunners ran drills on their weapon systems. Engineers made sure the ships could keep fighting even after taking heavy damage. Captain Rivera spent the journey studying everything they knew about Vorthak tactics. The aliens preferred to swarm their enemies with vast numbers of smaller ships. They used biological weapons that could turn a planet's own atmosphere against its inhabitants. They were relentless, never stopping to rest or regroup. But they had weaknesses too. They were overconfident, used to facing enemies who fought defensively. They relied on fear and intimidation as much as their actual weapons. Most importantly, they had never faced an enemy that was willing to be more ruthless than they were. On the 6th day, the human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Zilani system. The first thing they saw was the devastation. 3 of the system's 5 planets were dark. Their surfaces burned clean of life. The 4th planet was still fighting, but barely. Its orbital defenses were gone, and the Vorthak bioships were beginning their final assault. The 5th planet was Zilani Prime, the homeworld. It was still alive, but thousands of Vorthak ships surrounded it like a swarm of hungry insects. The planet's shields were failing, and its cities were burning. Captain Rivera opened a communication channel to the rest of the fleet. All ships, this is retribution. Target acquired. Commencing extermination protocol. The human fleet moved into attack formation. They had traveled across the galaxy to answer a cry for help, but they had not come as rescuers. They had come as executioners. The Vorthak were about to learn what happened when Deathworlders went to war. The Vorthak had been expecting another easy victory. For 500 years they had swept across the galaxy like a plague, and no species had ever truly hurt them. When their advanced scouts detected the approaching human fleet, the Swarm Lord commanding the assault on Zilani Prime felt something. That might have been amusement if the Vorthak were capable of such emotions. Another species had come to die uselessly, the Swarm Lord commanded. Over 3,000 bioships of various sizes. The smallest were the size of human destroyers but moved like living creatures, their surfaces rippling with muscle and bone. The largest were kilometer-long monstrosities that could crack a planet's crust with their main weapons. All of them were hungry for battle. The human fleet numbered only 200 ships. By Vorthak standards, it was a pathetically small force. The aliens had faced larger rescue fleets before, and consumed them all. This would be no different. The Swarm Lord ordered 1,000 ships to intercept the humans while the rest continued bombarding the Zilani homeworld. The bioships moved with organic grace, their living hulls pulsing as they accelerated toward the enemy. They communicated through bioelectric signals that created a web of shared consciousness across the entire swarm. Captain Rivera watched the Vorthak ships approach on his tactical display. They moved in a pattern unlike anything he had seen before, flowing like a school of predatory fish. Their formations seemed chaotic but were actually highly coordinated. They were beautiful in a horrifying way. All ships weapons-free, Admiral Chen broadcast across the fleet. Remember, we are not here to win a battle. We are here to commit genocide. Make every shot count. The first exchange of fire came when the opposing fleets were still 1,000,000 kilometers apart. The Vorthak opened with biological projectiles that were part weapon, part living creature. These biomissiles could adjust their course in flight and release clouds of acid when they hit their targets. The human response was very different. Kinetic rounds moving at significant fractions of the speed of light crossed the distance between fleets in seconds. When they hit Vorthak bioships, the results were catastrophic. The aliens had never faced weapons that hit with that much raw kinetic energy. The first Vorthak ship to die simply disintegrated. One moment it was a living warship 100 meters long. The next it was an expanding cloud of organic matter. The biomissiles it had been preparing to fire died with it. Their living guidance system shut down instantly. But the Vorthak had numbers, and they pressed their attack. Their ships began firing streams of acid that could eat through most known materials. They launched swarms of smaller creatures that were part missile, part predator. These bioweapons were designed to attach themselves to enemy ships and then burrow through the hulls to attack the crew inside. The humans had prepared for this. Their ships were armored with layers of ablative material that could absorb acid attacks. Their point defense systems used rapid-fire lasers to burn down incoming biomissiles before they could reach their targets. Most importantly, their crews were not afraid. The Vorthak had relied on fear as much as firepower for centuries. Their ships were designed to look like nightmares. Their weapons were meant to cause horror as well as damage. Species that saw Vorthak bioships often broke and ran before the real fighting even started. Humans looked at the alien ships and saw targets. Captain Rivera's ship, the Retribution, found itself facing 3 Vorthak vessels at once. The aliens tried to surround him, planning to overwhelm his defenses with concentrated fire. It was a tactic that had worked against countless other species. Rivera ordered his ship to accelerate directly toward the largest Vorthak vessel. As the range closed, both ships opened fire with everything they had. Streams of acid splashed against the Retribution's armor, while kinetic rounds punched through the bioship's living hull. At the last moment, Rivera ordered his ship to roll and fire its main guns at point-blank range. Nuclear warheads designed for ship-to-ship combat detonated inside the Vorthak vessel's body cavity. The bioship convulsed once and died, its organic systems unable to cope with that level of destruction. The other 2 Vorthak ships tried to ram the Retribution, but Rivera was ready for them. His ship's engines flared to full power, pushing it out of the way just as the aliens committed to their attack. The 2 bioships collided with each other instead, their living hulls tearing apart in a shower of acid and organic debris. Across the battlefield, similar scenes were playing out. The humans fought with a cold efficiency that the Vorthak had never encountered. They did not retreat when outnumbered. They did not hesitate when faced with horrifying biological weapons. They simply killed everything that came within range of their guns. But the real shock came when the first human boarding action began. The assault carrier Normandy had managed to disable a large Vorthak bioship without destroying it completely. Captain Sarah Kim ordered her Marines to board the enemy vessel and secure it for study. The Vorthak had never had their ships boarded. Other species found the idea too horrifying to contemplate. The interior of a bioship was a living nightmare of pulsing walls, acidic atmosphere, and creatures designed to kill intruders. Most aliens would have gone insane just from entering such a place. The human Marines who cut their way into the bioship were not most aliens. They were veterans of urban warfare on Earth, soldiers who had fought in the toxic ruins of chemical plants and the flooded tunnels of destroyed cities. They wore powered armor that protected them from acid, and carried weapons designed to kill in close quarters. Sergeant First Class Maria Santos led the first squad through the bioship's corridors. The walls around them pulsed with alien life, and the air was thick with spores that would have been deadly to most species. Her suit's systems filtered out the toxins while her helmet display highlighted potential threats. The Vorthak warriors they encountered were nightmares made flesh. Each one was 2 meters tall and covered in natural armor. Their claws could tear through most materials, and their acidic blood made them dangerous even when dying. They moved with the speed and grace of perfect predators. Santos and her squad killed them methodically. Human weapons were designed to stop large, dangerous creatures. The explosive rounds from their rifles punched through Vorthak armor and detonated inside their bodies. The aliens died quickly and violently, their own acid blood eating away at their corpses. But it was not just the efficiency of the killing that shocked the Vorthak. It was the fact that the humans seemed to enjoy it. These Marines had grown up on a world where everything was trying to kill them. Fighting monsters was not terrifying for them. It was familiar. Santos found the bioship's central nervous system, a pulsing mass of organic tissue that served as both brain and heart. She placed a thermite charge on it and activated the timer. The bioship would die slowly and in agony, its nervous system literally burning out. "Ship secured," she reported over the radio, continuing to secondary objectives. The secondary objectives were simple: kill every living thing on the ship and gather intelligence about Vorthak biology. The Marines moved through the vessel like exterminators, leaving nothing alive in their wake. The Swarm Lord commanding the Vorthak forces felt something it had never experienced before: doubt. The humans were not fighting like prey animals. They were fighting like apex predators, and they were winning. Bioships that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries were being destroyed faster than they could be replaced. For the first time in Vorthak history, the Swarm Lord considered retreat. But retreat was not in their nature. They were perfect predators, evolved for conquest and consumption. They would fight until every last one of them was dead. The humans were happy to accommodate them. Captain Rivera watched as another Vorthak bioship exploded under concentrated human fire. Around him, his crew worked with the calm efficiency of professionals doing a job they were very good at. They were not fighting a desperate battle for survival. They were conducting an extermination. "Admiral Chen to all ships," came the broadcast. "Phase 1 complete. Vorthak Advance Fleet eliminated. Proceeding to Phase 2. Remember, we are not here to save the Zilani, though we will do that. We are here to teach the galaxy what happens when you threaten our friends." The human fleet regrouped and accelerated toward Zilani Prime. Behind them, the wreckage of 1,000 Vorthak bioships drifted in space. It was the first time in 5 centuries that the swarm had been completely defeated in battle. It would not be the last. 6 months after the last Vorthak died on their homeworld, the galaxy was still trying to understand what had happened. The species that had terrorized civilized space for 5 centuries was simply gone. Not defeated, not scattered, not driven back to their home territory. Extinct Ambassador Cathara stood before the assembled Galactic Council, her crystalline body reflecting the lights of the Great Chamber. She had requested this special session to formally thank humanity for their intervention. But as she looked out at the representatives of dozens of species, she could see the mixture of gratitude and fear in their expressions. "The Zilani Republic owes its existence to humanity," she began. "When our world faced extinction, when every other species could offer only sympathy and evacuation, the humans came with warships and warriors. They did not hesitate. They did not calculate the cost. They simply came to help." The human representative, Ambassador Maria Santos, sat quietly in the section reserved for newer council members. She was the sister of the Marine sergeant who had led the first boarding action against a Vorthak bioship. Like many humans in diplomatic positions, she was a veteran of their military forces. But the humans did more than save our world, Cathara continued. They eliminated a threat that had hung over every peaceful civilization for centuries. The Vorthak swarm is gone forever. Our children will grow up in a galaxy where that particular nightmare cannot touch them. There was polite applause from the assembly, but it was subdued. The council members were grateful for the Vorthak's destruction, but they were also unsettled by the thoroughness of it. Humanity had not just won a war, they had committed genocide with industrial efficiency. The Alteran representative, Senator Veltar, rose to speak. His species had been among the first to offer evacuation ships when the Zilani called for help. While we are grateful for humanity's intervention, we must also address the unprecedented nature of their actions. The complete extinction of a species, even one as violent as the Vorthak, raises serious questions about the use of force in galactic affairs. Ambassador Santos stood to respond. She was a small woman with graying hair, but something in her posture suggested that she would be dangerous if threatened. The other delegates had learned to pay attention when humans spoke. Senator Veltar raises an important point, she said, her voice calm and professional. The extinction of any species is a serious matter. But let me ask the Council a question. How many billions of innocent beings died over the 5 centuries that the Vorthak were allowed to exist? How many civilizations were wiped out while we debated diplomatic solutions to a problem that had no diplomatic solution? She activated a holographic display showing the locations of former Vorthak attacks. Red dots covered a significant portion of the galaxy, each one representing a dead world and an extinct species. The Corlan, the Breviks, the Silicate Confederation, the aquatic hegemony's outer colonies. 47 different species completely destroyed by the Vorthak over the past 5 centuries. Billions upon billions of lives lost because no one was willing to do what was necessary to stop them. The chamber was silent. Every delegate knew the history she was reciting, but seeing it displayed so starkly was uncomfortable. Humanity did not choose to become the galaxy's exterminators. Ambassador Santos continued. We simply responded to a call for help with the tools and methods we understood. The Vorthak could not be reasoned with. They could not be contained. They could not be reformed. They could only be stopped. The ethereal collective's representative spoke next. Their species existed as energy beings and viewed physical violence with particular distaste. But surely there were alternatives to complete extermination. Could the Vorthak not have been imprisoned on their homeworld? Could their aggressive tendencies not have been modified through biological or psychological intervention? Ambassador Santos smiled, but there was no warmth in it. With respect, honored collective, your species has never faced an existential threat. You exist as pure energy and cannot be consumed or destroyed by biological predators. The Vorthak represented a direct threat to every species with physical bodies. They had to be eliminated completely to ensure they could never threaten anyone again. She paused and looked around the chamber. Humanity learned long ago that some threats cannot be contained or reformed. They can only be destroyed. This is not a lesson we wanted to teach the galaxy, but it is one that needed to be learned. The debate continued for hours. Some species praised humanity's decisive action. Others worried about the precedent it set. A few quietly suggested that humanity itself might now represent a threat to galactic peace. Ambassador Santos listened to all of it with the patience of someone who had expected these concerns. When the formal session ended, she found herself surrounded by delegates who wanted to speak privately. The representative from the Silicon Collective, a species of crystalline beings who communicated through harmonic vibrations, was the first to approach. Ambassador Santos, my people are concerned about the efficiency of human warfare. We have reviewed the tactical reports from the Vorthak campaign. Your forces destroyed an entire species in less than a year. This suggests capabilities that far exceed what we previously understood about human military technology. Is that a question or a statement? Santos asked. It is a concern. If humanity can eliminate the Vorthak so completely, what prevents them from doing the same to any other species that becomes inconvenient? Santos nodded as if she had expected this question. What prevented us from eliminating the Vorthak for the 500 years before they threatened the Zilani? We had the capability. We knew they existed. We could have launched a preemptive strike at any time. The Silicon representative's harmonic tones shifted to a frequency that indicated confusion. Why did you not? Because they had not attacked our friends, Santos replied simply. Humanity does not seek out wars. We do not conquer other species for resources or territory. We do not eliminate civilizations because they are different from us. But when innocent people call for help, we respond. And when we respond, we do so with everything we have. Word of this conversation spread quickly through the diplomatic community. Within days, every major power in the galaxy was reassessing their relationship with humanity. Trade agreements were fast-tracked. Military cooperation treaties were signed. Cultural exchange programs were expanded. The humans, for their part, seemed largely unaware of the effect they were having. Admiral Chen had returned to Earth and retired quietly to a small farm in what used to be called Montana. Captain Rivera was promoted to admiral and given command of humanity's growing interstellar fleet. The Marines who had hunted Vorthak through burning bioships went back to their regular duties protecting human colonies. But the galaxy remembered. When pirates began raiding shipping lanes near human space, they found their bases mysteriously destroyed and their crews missing. When a militant faction among the Thraxian Empire began making threats against peaceful neighbors, they received a simple message from Earth: reconsider. They did. The most significant change was in how other species viewed conflict resolution. The old model of endless negotiation and diplomatic solutions gave way to a new reality. Some problems required final solutions. When the corrupted AI plague threatened to spread from the Outer Rim worlds, it was human cyber warfare specialists who contained and eliminated it. When bioweapons research in the Tau sector threatened nearby colonies, it was human inspection teams who shut down the labs permanently. The Galactic Council established new protocols for dealing with existential threats. Any species or organization that posed a risk to civilian populations could be designated for human intervention. It was a polite way of saying that Earth's military would handle problems that diplomacy could not solve. A year after the Vorthak extinction, Ambassador Kithara visited Earth as part of a cultural exchange program. She stood in the memorial garden that humanity had built for the species they had saved from extinction. 47 crystalline monuments marked the civilizations that had been destroyed by the Vorthak before humans intervened. "Your people have changed the galaxy," she told Admiral Chen, who had come out of retirement to attend the dedication ceremony. "We did what was necessary," Chen replied. "Nothing more, nothing less. But how do you live with it? How do you sleep at night knowing that you ended an entire species?" Admiral Chen looked up at the stars visible through the garden's transparent dome. Somewhere out there, Zilani children were growing up safely because of what humanity had done. Dozens of other species could pursue their peaceful development without fear of the swarm. "I sleep very well," she said finally. "The Vorthak made their choice when they decided to become a plague on the galaxy. We simply gave them the ending they had chosen. For so many others." The conversation was recorded by Zilani historians and became part of the official record of what humans called the Vorthak War. Other species referred to it by different names: the Great Purge, the final solution, the human intervention. But whatever they called it, the lesson was clear. Humanity had not sent help to the Zilani. They had sent judgment, and the galaxy would never forget the difference.